have to share with people as to how to be successful in businesses. I've started a couple of businesses myself. I moved here in 1979, and I came here. I was 19 years old, and I did not have any. My education wasn't acknowledged here. I was educated where the English system, as they know, is a British system. So I was educated. I had O levels and so forth, which many people in India is well familiar with. It was the British system of education. But I got here, and lo and behold, thinking that okay, I'm ready to go and work, and they're looking at me and says, O levels, what is that? So the challenge was that I needed to work, and I realized that okay, I needed to go to school at the same time. So I was here for one day. I put a suit on, went to Manhattan, and started looking. I went door to door. That's the only thing I knew to do. I had never really worked for anyone else before. I'd only worked on a farm in Barbados. And
Farm boy like I am.
yeah, I worked on a farm.
How do you make something work?
Right, we called it plantations, but that's what we worked on, and that's all I knew is hard work. I said, so let me just go to work, and I don't know what I can do, because Manhattan doesn't have farms, they don't have animals, they don't have anything else. So what am I going to do? But anyway, I went door to door, and whoever would take me, and I said, well, I'm a hard worker, I can do whatever you need, and I got a job that same day working for a department store. I worked hard. I did relatively well there, and I realized that if I was going to get somewhere, I needed to go to school and get some education. And I started to do that. So I worked in the day and went to school at night, paid for it all myself. And after a couple of years of working there, I went to school for accounting, and I got my 2-year degree. And I says, okay, I just need to do something a little different. So that opportunity led me to working for Lady Shoes. I said, okay. So I'm not stacking shelves anymore. I'm working in Lady Shoes, selling shoes. I learned pretty quickly that if I am going to succeed, then I have to distinguish myself among my peers. And I worked very hard. I didn't take the breaks that everyone else took because I had a goal in mind. I became an assistant manager, then was promoted to floor manager. And then a couple of years, they gave me a position as a store manager in my own store. Moving up the ranks there in different places. During that time, because of the hours I was working, I stopped going to school. And I dedicated myself to the job. So when I got the store manager's position, it was so far for me to travel. I used to catch the train to get to work, and bus and train. And I took I said, it's too far for me. It's 100 miles away for me to just to get to the new position they had given me. And a friend of mine said to me, well, you know what, there's a position at my job as an accountant, which is what I really wanted, which is what I went to school for. And I said, okay, I will, I'll come and interview. So I interviewed, and they says, well, you need to know this. And I says, well, okay, I know, I have good math skills. I went to a trade school for 1 year for accounting, and I believe I understand debits and credits, I can do this. So I took that position, and that was my first accounting job. Over the years, I've went through all the stages. Got hired even here now as a company a few years ago as a accounting manager. I quickly became a manager of people. Done that for many years. And the thing is that all I'm trying to say is that if you put your mind to it and you are dedicated to a purpose and a cause, there's nothing stopping you from getting to where you want to go other than yourself. If you take on the laziness of what everyone else does, then you will hinder yourself. if you get sidetracked and start getting involved in alcohol and drugs, then you're sidetracking yourself. And people will call it fun, but you're not really enjoying yourself. You know, these things become weights around your neck.
Amen.
They become bondages that people find themselves trapped in. You know, so you'll find people that are mature and all of a sudden they, you know, mature in age, but they're still at the same level they were when they were 18, 19. It's because the bondages that they thought was pleasure has become a yoke around their neck and holds them back from progressing. See, I never got involved in that. I never drank.
The same way.
I never smoked. I never did drugs. I don't know what it feels like to be drunk because I didn't have those things. I saw what they did to other people and says, I will not go there. That will not be me, you know? And so what was left to focus on work, focus on what I wanted to accomplish. I was married at a young age and I had a wife. Well, I have to provide for my wife. And you know what? There are times when you are, some people would call that ambitious, but there are times when you are dedicated to doing what you know that you believe that you were put here to do. And I believe, and I know that you believe this, and I think we should talk about this, is that everyone has a purpose. No matter where you're born, no matter what level you are born at, everyone has a purpose.
Amen.
And it's finding that purpose that makes a difference, not only in your life, but all the people around you. When a person knows their purpose, that's where companies are birthed. That's where millionaires are formed. That's where people become to be employed and educated because one person knew their purpose. And that one person affects hundreds, even thousands. You were talking about Bill Gates earlier. Well, look at that. He found his purpose. And because he flowed in his purpose, millions of people around the world today are working, right? And I believe that no matter what country we're born in, wherever we began, we don't have to end up where we began, right? Our life doesn't have to end where we began. It can end someplace totally different if we can only know and believe that we have a purpose.
See, and that purpose is also that, I think for me, is when you get done with a level of understanding that you have, maybe even moving on to something better, a higher position.
Yes.
Is that when you're talking to your people, you have worked with for maybe 10 or 15 years, and saying to you, I love what you did to my life.
Yeah.
Because I have a purpose now.
Yes.
And, you know,
Yeah.
even as an electrician, a lot of electricians, they had apprentices. And the apprentice was a gopher. He just went to the pickup and kept getting the material that the journeyman needed. But he never learned nothing. My apprentices, I was the gopher. I got the parts, and then I showed him how to put the parts
How
in.
to put it on. Yeah.
See, that makes a difference. And when he gets to be a journeyman, he comes up to you, that's the greatest 4 years I've had.
Yeah. Yeah.
But see, I'm trying to instill this into other countries. I just talked to Africa this morning, and we got a jump started there already. We got colleges and universities that are being dedicated to us. Professors are stepping in line. And I believe that maybe even this disease was allowed to happen because we need to focus on a higher level of understanding. What have we created, even like when we went to the moon or we were going to Mars, what kind of machinery we need to go to the moon? And even on the way back, listen to me, there was 6 women that were secretaries. And when they were coming back, there was 13 different times they were about to lose their lives.
Wow.
But the secretaries were sitting there listening to what the engineers were saying, and they were able to give that 13th times it happened, they were able to achieve it and get the people back. See, that's a communication that's happening, no matter what kind of business you do, whatever you're happening, is that who you are is instilled into other people.
Yes.
And just day before yesterday, I met a nurse 20 years ago. I was leaving Kenya, and my heart was acting up and finding out I had one vein that was plugged. And so this nurse, they wouldn't let me fly back because I was in that critical stage. And she came, but she surfaced now. 20 years later,
Wow.
yesterday, she needed $400 to start a business. And I said, you bust
not
me
much,
20
yeah.
years ago. I want to give you the $400. But finding out that in Kenya, her $400 American money multiplied to $16,000 theirs.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
See, it's the same thing even
So-
in India and Africa. There's a lot of countries. India, it's $1 is like 70. I can build a $100,000 school building for 20,000 in India. A brick is 8 cents, and I'm paying 80 cents for it here. So why are we focusing on the countries that we can multiply faster, and the teaching and even tablets or computers? A tablet here is $80, $90 to $100. I can buy one in India from the government for $50 and give it to a village that's got 1,500 people, train one person, and he goes from
And then
house
they
to
train.
house.
They train. Yes.
Because you can't have a big gathering
Train the
because
trainer.
of the disease.
I
but
get
we
it.
can have 5 or 6 people.
I get it.
And if he's teaching like we are, what is your future? And get everybody ready so when this disease goes out of the picture,
And it will go out. And it will go out.
it will happen one day that we're all ready to jump in, and instead of being an importing nation, we will be an exporting nation. Everybody will have work.
Amen.
So this is our whole
Excellent.
purpose. And
Excellent.
Even just
Excellent.
talking to Petrus this morning, like I said, I haven't talked to him in 2-3 weeks, and the internet wasn't working. But then when I start to explain to what we're doing in India, and he says, Gene, the Lord, I'm having that same thing
Wow.
coming to me,
Wow.
that we have to not just teach, but we've got to apply who we are and what we are. And even if we got, like he's taking in the kids at 3 years old, and he's taking handicapped kids in, he's taking in kids that are homeless. Not everybody is paying for it. That's what we need to do.
Yeah,
Even in
yeah.
India, we made that
Wow.
model. 60% that want to go to school and we teach, they can be paying students. 40% is free. Because you have to take them all. You can't just take a few.
Yeah, yeah.
Because a nation will grow because all of them.
Because everyone is moving ahead, yes. And instilling value in them, letting them see that you have a future. You know, I think that's one of the biggest things. I even see it here, Gene, is that there are so many people that I've come across. And I look at them and I'm saying, why are you stuck? I've known you for 20 years and you're still stuck,
My
right?
grandson came in, he's 42 years old and he's not
Yeah,
have a
what-
permanent job.
But it happens, you know, because, you know, I look at myself. I've experienced what everyone calls the American dream.
It is.
You know, well, you have multiple houses. You have all these different things. You're successful in what you do and so forth. And it's like, well, wait a minute. I'm an immigrant to this country. I came here with nothing, right? So what is the difference? The difference is that I always believe that I can accomplish something.
You can because you have freedom to choose.
Right. And even though someone might tell you you can't, do not believe what those people are saying. You were put here on this earth for a purpose. Finding that purpose and beginning to operate in it is what will take you to the next level. And this is what we need to teach people. This is what people need to understand, that when you have a purpose and you search for and you work for and you're diligent to find out what it is, your life will make a tremendous difference in your city, in your village, in your town, wherever you live, in your community, even in your nation, right? You know, and we all were born in the same way. We all born knowing nothing. We're all born, you know, with some sort of, we have to learn everything that we know. And yes, we understand that some people have better environments for learning. But when you look at the heroes of nations, the heroes of countries, people that we celebrate today in whatever country you look at, many of them weren't born with anything. They were born the ones that had the least. But they found their purpose and they began to impact others. And I believe that there are many people who are watching us and talking to, people that you are in contact with, that have a purpose. And no one has ever told them that they have a purpose. No one has ever told them that they can go beyond the borders where they were born, that they can excel and move to another level, right? And I want to tell you that it is possible. And the only thing that will hinder you is what you think. If you don't believe that that can happen, it will not happen. But if you believe it can happen and you pursue it, guess what? It can really happen for you. I really believe that.
I think my wife, she was kind of evaluating even our purpose as retirees and how can we accomplish something in the world. And one of the things that she's been coming up is the word fear. I always got that fear that, you know, but stepping into a new level of understanding, and instead of, even say it, the greatest game that you can play. I mean, we got so many computers and cell phones, and kids are playing games on them, which don't accomplish nothing. The greatest game you can play is a game of life. What are you going to accomplish in your lifetime?
Right, right.
And if you can see that, your cell phone or your laptop is can teach you everything you need.
Yeah,
All you
yeah.
gotta do is Google it, and the English language is important. Even Russia, just a couple of years ago, their second language is English now. India did the same thing because they know that because of all the computers and stuff that are being built, that we going to the moon was the breaking point of having something accomplished that never was done before.
Yeah. But you said something that was interesting, right? And it's the fear factor is what stops a lot of people. Even if you have the vision that you can do something, even if you have the vision, there is always this voice in the back of your head that says, oh, you can't do it. Oh, it's too risky. It's too dangerous. But nothing is accomplished unless you step out. Nothing is accomplished unless you first face that fear.
Educate even.
Right. You see, even, so we face the fear, even going from one grade to the next. There's a certain trepidation, there's a certain fear, it's unexpected, it's new, but you have to get past that. Once we get past that, then we are able to move into the next level. So don't let fear, and I think that's another thing we need to tell people, is don't let fear stop you from going to the next level. In fact, when you get there, you'll find, well, wait a minute, this is what I was afraid of, but this is easy.
I heard teaching one time in fear, F-E-A-R, false evidence
That appears real. Yeah.
And that's a lot of times we walk into that, and it keeps from motivating our head.
Yeah.
And if you even just take some time, and even like me, in the past, I watched the stock market for 5 years, every night for half an hour. But now that I'm retired, I've invested in the stock market, I have multiplied, I have done the right things. And it's an education.
Yeah.
And I know my first wife used to watch TV. She always says, oh, why are you always on your computer? And I says, you can watch the Wheel of Fortune. And unless you're the person that's answering the question, that's the only one that's gonna make any money. But if you're in your computer and you're seeking what is the future of our lives, and it keeps changing. I mean, you look back, when I was 12 years old, we got our first car. A horseback before that. How many things that even in my lifetime, that's the reason I want to teach, because I want to make everybody else's lifetime better.
Yeah, yeah.
Even like my grandson, now he plays games, and now he's struggling with a job, and they're telling him he's got to work, 5 days or 6 days a week, and if you don't, he's going to get laid off. And he come in to my house tonight, and I says, wait a minute, you do that for a while. You don't quit your job until you got to focus on something that's new.
That's right.
Because when you quit your job, your money quits, and then how do you pay the bills? You pay the bills, and you keep on doing what the boss wants, and do what you can for looking for a new job.
Yes, yes.
And it don't make any sense if you quit it before.
Well, that's a tip I think that we need to tell people too. Don't quit your job until you have another job.
Yes.
Because you never know how long that gap will be between jobs. And very often, when you quit a job and because you have another job, usually that is a step up. When you quit a job, then you have to look for another job. Very often, it becomes a step down. So sometimes you have to put up with a little nonsense, or put up with a little aggravation, in order to get to where you're going, because you have to remember, you have a goal and a purpose that you're trying to accomplish. The only way that it comes to fruition is through hard work, through diligence, through patience, and continued education. Continue to teach yourself. And that doesn't have to be formal education. Continue to teach yourself about the trade that you're in. Ask questions. Be diligent at it. If you're going to do something, do it wholeheartedly. Don't, as we say, half step. Don't half step. Step fully into it and immerse yourself into it. And in doing so, you will find that doors begin to open for you, because everyone wants, every business owner wants someone that works hard. And when they recognize that there's someone that works hard and is diligent, they will take you along with them. Right? Because the idea of ownership of a business, of being successful, is you don't want to always be working hard. You want others to work alongside of you who have the same ethic. And they will gladly take people who are hard workers with them to every company. And that happened to me, a couple of times. There are companies that I left the company, and my previous boss left the company, and he went to another company. And when a position opened up, he said, well, I know just the guy that's the right guy for this position. He did well over there. I believe he'll do well here. Right? So there I go. I step into a position that's an increase. It happened several different times where a prior boss says, no, I want this guy because I know that he's good, because he's going to carry the weight. Right? And this is something that we have to instill in the people that we know, that your friends, the people that we're speaking to on this broadcast as well, that if you work hard, people will recognize you. If you continue to educate yourself, people will recognize that, and people will always pay you for what you know. People will always pay you for what you can do. See, you hire somebody based on what they know. Right? Yeah. And then when you see that person is constantly growing, when it comes time for increase, you're going to pay that person because you yourself, as the person that you might be the first round, but you are growing, and managers, owners, business owners, they recognize that, and they will always pay you for what you know. So you owe it to yourself to constantly study, constantly learn, constantly apply yourself. Even if your friends aren't, if you want to go somewhere, you do it. Because remember this, people will pay you for what you know.
I got a grandson that he went to be an electrical engineer because I was an electrician, and we helped with his schooling. He graduates, and then he was able to work for a firm, engineering firm, but he couldn't work because there was other people that were working there already. But they hired him just in case they needed somebody. So then the 5Gs came in, which is back to computers now, and they needed somebody to lay the fiber optic cables down. Well, that's labor. And he asked me the question, shall I do that? And I says, yes. Because even when I was an electrician, they was having teachings of fiber optics, how to connect them and how to make it work. And I didn't do that, but he has a chance too. I did that for 2 years. And then another firm from South Carolina heard about him, and they hired him on. They sent him to 9 months of schooling, and you know what? He buys a $250,000 home, and they moved all of his stuff, and he's one of the engineers that putting in the fiber optics for the 5Gs.
Yeah, you see.
And putting in the towers.
You see, yeah.
It's who you are and how you educate yourself, even when you're working.
Come on, even when you're working. Yes, Gene.
But they have to see that you're capable of stepping into the next position, and you'll take care of it and you make money for them.
That's right. Yeah. So there you go. I mean, even though they had to educate him and build him up, but they recognized that he knew, so he had the foundation. And I think that many people, that if we, again, I can't say this enough today, if we apply ourselves and we recognize that we have a purpose, we seek that purpose, and we seek to educate ourselves in the purpose. And very often you might say, well, how do I know what my purpose is? Very often your purpose is usually associated around things that you like to do. I liked accounting. You know, I didn't know everything about it, but I liked it. I knew I didn't want to work in the hot sun. I knew I didn't want to work in the cold weather. So I said, okay, I have to work in an office because that's my preference, right? So I said, okay, well, how can I do this? And I sat down and I said, okay, well, what profession in an office do I want to go into?
And
Right.
You were accounting, you were good.
And I said,
you moved
okay.
up pretty soon you're in
Right. I said, well, accountants run businesses. So I says, you know what? I'll do that. So I started going to school for that. And you know, it's something that I like, something that somewhat came naturally to me in many ways. Now, am I the best accountant out there? No, I'm not, you know. But am I diligent and am I hardworking? Do I apply? Do the attitude that I have, Jane, is this, and this will serve you well, those who are watching this, is in any job that you have, if you are concerned with the concerns of your boss, and if you say that I want to run whatever I'm responsible for so that my boss never has to worry about it, you will always be promotable. You will always be promotable, and that has always been my attitude in anything that I do. Right now, I'm one of the VPs in a $800 million company, almost to be $1 billion. Even to this day, right? My attitude is, if I'm responsible for something, my boss should not have to worry about this. My boss should know that it's going to get done. It's going to get done with excellence, and the other thing is, I always want to make my boss look good, right? Then you promote. Then they'll gladly take you anywhere because they know that you're not going to undercut them. They know that you're not going to try to make them look bad to get ahead, right? No, they're going to recognize, and they will pay you for that, and they will trust you with the things that are valuable. So those are some attitudes. There's some little tips that I wanted to share today.
I think one of the things that really promoted me, for an example, I did a little bit of electrical work and I was 18 years old, and somehow the new firm I was working for found out I was an electrician. I did it for farms, which is simple.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we're putting together a big cutting plant, and they needed 30 people working, and I was putting it as a boss. That's just one example. But on the other hand, I learned something. Because you haven't got it all,
That's right.
you go back to the boss and he says, I want you to put this in. I've never done that before. Can you explain it to me a little bit? He wants you to relate with him because he'd rather you come to him and say, I didn't do this before, and not make a mistake and screw something
Ask
up.
the question, yes.
Twice as much.
That's right.
And that's what we have to instill, because you don't know it all. You will be learning until you die.
Yes,
And,
that's right.
And that's a good place to be, because you're always learning.
That's right. And we can learn from people at different levels. So if we start thinking that we have it all and we know it all, then we're cutting ourselves short. We're cutting our own education short, because there are different ways to get to the same place. And because there are different ways, that means there are different paths. And in those paths, there are different levels of education, levels of learning, techniques that we can glean from. So always ask questions. Well, how did you do that? What made you think of doing that? How does it work? Show me. You know, even though you might be ahead of that person, you can always learn from someone below, right? And that's how we, not only do we make relationships that way, it's how we ourselves grow and become promotable.
You can go back to the story about the 6 women and going to the moon. If them 6 women weren't sitting in the offices listening to the engineers,
Yes.
and they were taking all this information, they weren't even part of that. They weren't hired for
Was it
that.
their job? No.
But they were taking all this information, and when the engineers got to a standstill, they didn't know what to do. The secretary stood up
Suggestions, yeah.
and
Yeah.
brought them back.
Yeah, yeah.
So, see, that's the same thing for us. If you're alert all the time, even me as an electrician, people says, how come you're building homes now, and you're a carpenter, and you're doing this, and you're doing plumbing? And I said, I don't watch what the electrician's doing, because I know how to do that. I watch what the plumber's doing. I watch what the carpenter's doing. And if I don't know, I go up to him and say, why'd you do that?
Yeah,
He'll
yeah.
tell me how.
Yes.
And the next thing you know, maybe 2 years down the road, I can't get an electrical job, but all of a sudden I'm building homes for the government
Come on.
in 3 air bases in
Come on.
South Dakota, North
Yeah.
Dakota, 2 of them. We built over 3,000 homes. And I was the last person laid off. Why?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Valuable
I was willing to.
to learn, and you had value. Yes, value. So, well, I think this is the end of the broadcast, but, what we've discussed today is how to make yourself valuable to someone else. People will always pay you for what you know. People will always pay for something that is valuable. And I believe that as we educate ourselves, as we apply ourselves, as we understand that we have a purpose, as we endeavor to go to another level and apply ourselves to that, people will recognize it. Promotion will come, and you will always have a job if that's your attitude.
I'll give you another example. I have a son that is a general contractor, and he was building homes in Washington, D.C. And because he knew I was an electrician and he was a general contractor, so he can do it all.
Mm-hmm.
But he got stumped sometimes of what he needed to install as far as electrical. I got a phone call.
Mm-hmm.
We can do the same thing.
Yeah.
If we have a broad of people that we are associated, even with him, and accounting, if I need something in accounting, I'll find Jerry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or if I need, it's like my son did, if he needs something, putting a 4-way switch in, which he never done before, I explained to him on the phone.
Yeah.
And you accomplish. He was building $1 million homes in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he couldn't do that because he needed other people around him,
Mm-hmm.
even if he didn't work for him. And we have that same purpose.
Yes.
We build a cluster of friendship.
So
We build
true.
a cluster of, I always look at the word love. Everybody says the word love is something that's supposed to be expressible. But it's the word, unless you put it into action. And action means you got a relationship with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's going to make your goal.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, good talking with you today. Until next week.
Yes.
Okay. Bye-bye now. See you next week.
You know,
That's good.
it's so exciting that what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And even talking to some of the other countries. And now there's a bishop in Zimbabwe that he's got footings down.
Go back up to broadcast, and then